ready to stump for Trump. I'm here to support the next president of the United States, Donald Trump.
Many national headlines these days, but Trump is counting on her to help him beat Ted Cruz in the caucus. Polls show both Republican and Democratic caucuses are virtually tied. And this morning, the Des Moines Register endorsed Marco Rubio for the GOP nomination. And the endorsements are big since polls last week showed 56% of Republicans and 40% of Democrats said they could still be persuaded at caucuses. So what's next for the candidates ahead of Iowa? That's our topic this half hour. We want to hear from you on Facebook and on Twitter. Use the hashtag Fox26for Life. Joining us live in the newsroom is our panel led by our senior legal analyst, Chris Tritico, our news analyst, Mustafa Tamiz, and public policy analyst, Jackie Bally. The paper also endorsed Hillary Clinton this morning. So what do you guys make of all of these endorsements?
You know, I'm going to focus primarily on Sarah Palin. While that endorsement was completely nonsensical and one of the funniest political speeches I've heard in a very long time, it's going to help Donald Trump in the short run because of her huge standing in the Tea Party, even though she can't conjugate a sentence, in my opinion. But if Donald Trump wins the nomination, she will be a huge draw from him in the general election. The Washington Post wrote an article last week saying that Sarah Palin single-handedly cost John McCain 2 million votes in the race when she was the vice presidential nominee. So I don't think that in the long run she's that helpful to him. But Ted Cruz said when she did it, Ted Cruz said publicly, I have a lot of respect for her. I wouldn't be in the Senate without her. So he obviously felt like it was a hurt to him.
Well, I mean, it is. She's incredibly popular, especially in Iowa. She does credential Donald Trump as a conservative, as a Tea Party candidate for her coming out public supporting. But the other thing that happened that's not getting as much press, which I think is incredibly important, is the governor of Iowa, long-standing, one of the longest-serving governors. Terry Branstad came out and basically said anybody but Ted Cruz, and he said it in a very public and a forceful way. So having Sarah Palin and then getting the nod in a way, Donald Trump by Governor Nunn really puts him in the lead.
The governor's not supporting Trump; he's just not supporting Cruz.
Well, but Cruz is the #2 candidate in there, and by disqualifying Cruz from this, he's really helped Trump in a very significant way.
Now you're working with Ted Cruz, and he's a friend of yours, so yes. I want to get that out.
Disclosure, yes.
But does Sarah Palin help Donald Trump, and does it hurt Ted Cruz?
Well, it goes back to what we were discussing earlier. Having such an active grassroots on both sides, the Democratic and the Republican side, a lot of these endorsements are not really saying much or weighing much on the voters. They're looking at what the candidates are saying. You're seeing outsiders in both parties who are really resonating because they're outsiders. The fact that the governor said that about Ted, no one is surprised. Ted has always been an outsider. He was elected as an outsider. He continued to do what his constituents and voters wanted. So the fact that insiders are saying we don't like Ted Cruz surprises no one. That's exactly why he's so popular with his base.
There's a lot of Republican insiders who are coalescing around Donald Trump and who are publicly saying it.
And that's it. It's not just insiders. Sarah Palin doesn't represent the inside establishment of the Republican Party wing. She represents the outsider candidate. She's campaigned for outsiders ever since her VP nomination, and she's a big indicator of where the party's headed.
Now, with that many people, I can't remember what the stat was, but with that many people saying they could still be swayed with a week to go in Iowa, we could really see a big swing here.
Yeah,
and you could see who I predicted was going to win in the end, Marco Rubio, step up.
I think that it's really game on. I mean, it depends on how the candidates continue to react. It depends on how hard they're going to work. And the voters are right now paying attention to everything that's being said. They're doing their research. So it's really, I mean, when you see with Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton, he has really continued to close that gap, and he's surged ahead in New Hampshire in a way that no one predicted. They thought he would be ahead, but he really has surged ahead to the point that President Obama has said he's not going to endorse Hillary Clinton, and that's his former Secretary of State. So you're going to see a lot of the voters paying attention to their campaigning.
And let's switch to the Democratic side for a little bit. I mean, Bernie Sanders is making it, at least in these first two, making a pretty big headway, but is that going to carry him through?
Look, I think he's making a big headway. I think he's been talking about the same thing for the last 40 years, and he's talking to the American public in a way that is compelling and the things that they care about. But at the end of the day, Hillary Clinton is the most qualified candidate on the ballot, Republican or Democrat, and she's going to get the nomination to be the next president.
Well, Bernie Sanders is saying a lot of things that people want to hear and a lot of things that people like to hear. But when you add up the dollars, his programs spend more money than everybody else combined, and I don't know how he does that.
Well, Hillary has the infrastructure. There's no doubt about that. And I think what you're seeing with her and her candidacy is that she took it for granted. She thought, I am the inevitable person who's going to be carrying this title. And she underestimated Bernie. And then you have the vice president who's saying almost daily, I regret not jumping into that race because he's seen how much she's blowing her lead with Bernie. So Bernie is resonating with a certain amount of viewers, but it's really the trustworthy factor that is so low with Hillary Clinton. Her email scandal, now the FBI has extended their investigation. There's so many things surrounding her as a candidate.
I mean, the Republicans have gone out of their way to do damage to Hillary Clinton, and is it working?
Well, I think, look, it's a competitive political campaign. It's for the most powerful job in the world. And so you're going to see attacks on both sides, and that's the way it should be.